So in the previous video, we talked about the importance of giving our people real clarity around what's expected of them. And the second thing that a good manager will do is to then measure against that clarity. So you might have heard the phrase before, what gets measured gets managed. And really what we're looking to achieve here are three things. We're looking to ensure that we're creating for our people an area of optimal pressure. Now, some people say, oh, pressure, that's a bad thing, isn't it? No, it's a good thing to a point. And we're wanting to make sure that people actually are performing because of the appropriate level of pressure. A good example of that might be, most of us probably are paying rent or have got mortgages to pay. So that in itself creates a level of pressure that gets us out of our bed in the morning to go to work to earn the money. So we need a level of pressure to function. So what does that pressure look like within your business? Again, if we take an example like Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer, everyone knows who he is, of course. And he was once famously asked, how many sit-ups do you do in training? And he answered the question like this. He said, well, I've got no idea. I don't count. I only start counting when it starts to hurt. And what he's really saying there is that, he's in a comfort zone and he's trying to get out of that comfort zone as quickly as he possibly can, to the point that he tips into what we refer to as the growth zone. Because in the growth zone, and that's where he wants to stay for as long as possible, is where the muscle's growing. And the more he can stay there, it grows and grows. And really that's what we're trying to achieve for our people, which is, what are the things that will be stretching them in a way that allows them to continually expand their comfort zone as well, so that they become bigger, more fuller versions of themselves and can really start to perform. So that's the first thing that a good manager will do, is deliberately create the pressure environment in which people can thrive. Now, obviously, there is a balance point to this. Too much pressure is not a good thing, and we need to be alert to these things so that we can kind of lessen the level of pressure, so people can kind of get back to a good or optimal level of performance. But that's the subject of another video around, the appropriateness of challenge and support within our management. The second thing that we need to be doing to really help the measurement aspect of management is to have regular conversations. So what I mean by that is, the very basic discipline of sitting down on a regular basis with your people and actually having a one-to-one that just says, look, how are you getting on? How are you getting on versus the clarity that's previously been set, the metrics, the behaviours? How are you getting on? And then to have a conversation about that says, okay, look, bloomin' well done, because you're doing a great job on X, Y, and Z areas. But also where people are maybe falling short. It's like saying, okay, look, we're falling short right now. So what support do you need in order to get ourselves back on track? Is there some training that might be required? Or maybe are you not as clear as maybe as you should be? Might that be an issue that I've created by my management communication not being as tight as it should have been? The regular conversation's critical. And all too often what I'm seeing or hearing is people saying, oh, I don't have time for the one-to-ones. It's like, no, the wrong thinking. You don't have time not to have these one-to-ones, because it builds problems up for the future. So again, little and often, nice level of frequency around conversing around how you're getting on versus the expectations that have been set. And then thirdly, we're looking at making sure that the conversation is objective as best as it can be. And so again, if I have an awkward conversation around someone's performance, then it's going to be really hard. I'm looking straight into the camera right now, so imagine that's you and me having a conversation about your performance. It's going to be a bit awkward, a bit stingy, as I say, to when I have to address something that's kind of below where it should be. It might be a behavioural trait that you have that actually is having a bad effect on the team. I need to address that with you. Well, actually, it's going to be quite hard potentially. Most people find confrontation or apparent confrontation quite difficult. However, if I've got a thing called a third thing in the conversation, then the whole thing starts to become less subjective and more objective. What I mean by third thing is, imagine now I've got something to the side of us. So rather than me and you looking at each other, eyes are now on this thing. Now this thing, by the way, is what we've already done in clarity. It might be, look, here are the values, here are the behaviours and standards that we've previously communicated, and actually, look, you're falling a bit short on X, Y, or Z areas. It becomes a much more helpful conversation to say, look, we've previously agreed that these are the right standards, but look, there's a couple of things here that we need to put back on track. Much more objective conversation, and then people hopefully can then take that conversation and do something with it. So, right, you've pointed something out, I wasn't aware of it, let me get that back on track. Really, really important thing to do. And the whole process of doing these three things, creating some pressure, having regular conversations, and having the conversations with a third thing, is because we want to drive accountability in our business. We don't want to allow people to have too much room for excuses because they're not helpful to anyone. We want to drive people to accountability. So ideally, they hold themselves accountable. You don't even have to do it. They hold themselves accountable. So the purpose behind doing these three things is actually to help us ensure that we're really driving accountability within our people. Because we don't want to leave them with the opportunity to make excuses, because we know that that's a low performance attribute. We want to move people so that they themselves can hold themselves to account without us having to do so. But we want to make sure that measurement drives accountability in our team.